I would like to introduce one of my continuous friend and partner and my supporter, who is giving me a good hand to contact and express my views in English version to the viewers who understand English. He is brother Syed Mohammed Taqvi. He is son of a renowned scholar Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Mohtaram Janab Maulana Syed Mohammed Taqvi Sahab. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Question about you, that why do we call Imam Baqir Alum? Will you define it? Thank you.
Of course. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. So the title that was given to the Imam, as in Baqirul Ulum or Baqirul Ilm, both have been used in the kunniyat of the Holy Imam alayhi salams. And the definition in English is the one who opens knowledge or the one who splits knowledge. Baqir means to split. So Baqirul Ilm is the one who splits knowledge or the one who opens up knowledge in itself. And why do we call him that? Because if you look at from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, going on to Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, on to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on to Imam Zainul Abidin, they weren't given the opportunity to openly preach. They weren't given the opportunity to openly teach. They were either in battles, in house arrests, in treaties, or in wars. Imam Baqir alayhi salam is the first Imam of the Ahlul Bayt that wasn't stopped, that wasn't house arrested, that wasn't told you can't preach to the people. He was the only Imam at the time of Ma'mun in which they say that this Imam was given the open preaching ability. So the Imam taught, the Imam had students, the Imam had a vast, huge, as we would say, a university. In that university, the Imam preached, number one, he started off with scientific knowledge. Science, especially for the Muslims, came from this Imam. And it reached its peak at the time of his son, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam. But Imam Baqir began scientific knowledge. And his knowledge of science, not only within the Hijaz of Saudi Arabia, but his knowledge spread all the way to Iraq, all the way to Iran, into the city of Khurasan. There were people in Khurasan that used to come to the Imam in Hijaz and gain knowledge from him. He also stopped chaos. You see, during the time of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, a lot of schools of thought and a lot of jurisprudence was starting to emerge. As you know, at the time of Imam Sadiq, what happened? Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, 4 men decided to create their own schools of thought. Even though they were students of Imam Sadiq, they decided to create their own school of thought. So Imam Baqir, during his reign of Imamat, he stopped people doing qiyas. Qiyas means analogy, coming up to your own conclusions according to your understanding. So the Imam said, no one in Islam, especially in fiqh, in Islamic law, you are not allowed to do qiyas. Abu Hanifa did qiyas, right? He did qiyas once. And Bahlol hit him with a rock and set him straight. So qiyas was something that the Imam stopped. His words spread a lot to the extent that the Imam focused a lot on hadith. There is a sahab of the Imam by the name of Jabir al-Ju'fi. Jabir al-Ju'fi narrated 70,000 hadiths from Imam Baqir alayhi salam.
Wow.
So he focused on hadith. The Imam also did the tafsir of the Quran. And we have a few books that link back to the tafsir that the Imam gave, because Imam Baqir alayhi salam said, if you want to understand the Quran, you have to come through the Ahlul Bayt. When other people start translating the Quran and start giving their own commentaries on the Quran, that's where you will be led astray. For Rasulullah said, Inni tarikum fikum muthakalain, kitab Allah wa itrati ahl bayti. I leave you 2 weighty things, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Stick onto both of these. Hold on to both of these, and you will never go astray. So Imam is saying, other than the Ahlul Bayt, nobody can explain the Quran to you. So the Imam would have classes and give dars on the tafsir of the Quran. He would give dars on scientific knowledge. He would give dars on hadith. And just like that, the Imam spread his knowledge through Arabia, into Iran, into Iraq, and he paved the way for his son Imam Sadiq alayhi salam to then be able to continue with that message. And as we know, we have over 3 to 4,000 graduates from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Algebra, last example, algebra, right? It's a mathematical thing, but people don't look at where did algebra begin. Algebra wasn't created by the West. The mathematical equation or the syllabus of algebra, where did it come from? It came from Jabir, a companion of Imam Sadiq, who the Imam taught him algebra. He then spread that across Arabia. And now it's known as algebra, but it was based on Jabir, student of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. So like that, this Imam was, as I said, the first Imam that was given the opportunity to openly preach, and he spread a vast amount of knowledge in all the theological discussions and all the topics such as science, Quran, ilm al-hadith, ilm al-daraya, asul fiqh, etc., etc. So this was why
Thank you.
we call him Baqir al-ilm.
Thank you very much. Brother Taqvi, I am coming towards you because I didn't give you because you were freeze. So it is, I think so. It is your turn again. Could you please give me some examples of Imam Bakar's debates with the different people? Would you please? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So a lot of debates have been recorded in the books of history of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, where he debated, for example, Christians, he debated people of the Jewish faith, he even debated atheists, those that say that there is no God. And at the same time, he also debated many Muslims as well. Now, during the time of Imam Baqir, a very famous debate of our Imam is a debate that he had with a Christian scholar from Syria. This Christian scholar, he came to debate the Imam, and he said to the Imam that I guarantee you will not be able to answer my questions. He said, my questions are so difficult that my whole life, no one has ever been able to answer these questions, and I don't think you can either. So the Imam said, look, if you have questions, ask them. I am here to answer them. So he began very arrogantly by saying, Islam believes that in heaven, humans will eat food, drink water, but they won't pass anything. So basically what he was saying was there are no toilets, right? How is it possible that a human being can eat food, drink water, but not pass anything? Give me an example in this world. Now, it's a difficult question, but the Imam, Baqir al-Ilm, he replied back straight away. He said, when a baby is in the womb of its mother, the baby eats what the mother eats. The baby drinks what the mother drinks. But the baby does not pass anything through its system. So you're asking me, how can heaven be a place where humans can eat and drink and not pass anything? The Imam says, I'll give you an example in this world. A baby in the womb of its mother eats and drinks but doesn't pass anything. Now this Christian scholar is shocked. He's thinking, wow, he's answered the question straight away. And he's given me an example in this life as well. So he's okay, moving on to the next question. He said, tell me something that the more you take from it, it doesn't decrease. So just an example, if I have a glass of water, the more water that I take out of this glass, the original glass will decrease in quantity, right? So think, what is it? If you have a plate of food, a plate of rice, the more you take out of it, the more the original decreases. So he's thinking, yes, I've got the Imam now. He's not going to be able to answer me. So he said, tell me of a thing, the more you take from it, the less it doesn't decrease. It stays the same. The Imam said, fire. Arg. The Imam says, you can take a candle from a fire and you can light 1,000 more candles. But that original fire that was being used does not decrease. Now he's shocked again. He's thinking, He's already answered two of my questions. No one's been able to answer them. So he straight away asks the third question. He says, tell me about a time when it's neither day or night. Tell me of a time that's neither day nor night. So the Imam says to him, during the period of sunrise and dawn, there's a small fraction of time between sunrise and dawn that there's a little bit of a purple light in the sky. For those people who, are awake during Fajr time, you would know that if you look out the window, there's a period just before dawn and before sunrise, meaning Imsak and Fajr. During that period of time, the Imam says that time, for a split few seconds, is neither day and it's not night. There you go, you have your answers. So the books go on to say that the man became so shocked, he had one final question, last question. He said to the Imam, if you answer this question, I will leave Christianity, I will join Islam. But he was very confident that the Imam won't be able to answer this last question. So the Imam said, Bismillah, go on, ask me. So the man says, tell me about two people who were born on the same day, who died on the same day, but one was 50 years old, one was 150 years old. So now obviously he's thinking, this is a आपे तुसी सोचो भी दोवें एक ही दिन पैदा होए एक ही दिन मरे एक 50 साल दा 150 साल दा. It's a very difficult question. So the Imam turned around and said to him, that's not a problem at all. He says, I'll give you an answer from the Quran. He says it's an incident by the name of Uzair and Azra. They were two people. Uzair was going through a city. In that city, Uzair noticed that there was complete destruction. So he had a question in his mind. He said, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect the dead? Like he had not a doubt, but just a question. How does Allah raise the dead? So just because he thought that, the Quran says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused him and his donkey and the food that he had on his donkey to die, and they were in that state of death for 100 years. 100 years later, Uzair alayhi salam wakes up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, how long have you been asleep? He says, I probably, a day, part of a day, half a day. Why? Allah says, you have been asleep for 100 years. So Uzair is like, what? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the same way I've raised you from 100 years of death, on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, I will raise everything that I created in terms of human beings. And they will also think they only went asleep for a part of a day. So then Uzair goes back to see his brother Azra. Azra doesn't recognize Uzair. It's been 100 years. So Uzair says, I am your brother. Azra says, you don't look like my brother. So obviously the conversation goes on, and we have, hadiths and things that explain that Uzair proved to Azra he was Uzair by giving him examples of what he did as a child. Brothers know, twins especially, the secrets, of your siblings, right? So when Uzair told Azra, this is what you did when you were younger, this is what you did when you were younger, all of a sudden Azra says, you are Uzair. He said, yes. So Imam Baqir alayhi salam said to the Christian prince, you better get ready to accept Islam, because Azra and Uzair were both born on the same day. They both died on the same day, but one was 50 years old and one was 150 years old.
Because the time is running very short and I don't think so I come back to you. So Taqvi, can you please reply me for my last question, that was Imam Baqir in Karbala?
Very good question. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yes, Imam Baqir alayhi salam was present in Karbala. There are narrations, and the books of the Maqtal or the Maqatil of Karbala say that he was either 4 years old or 5 years old. But Imam Baqir was present in Karbala. So the Imam Baqir witnessed the tragedies of Karbala. He witnessed the aftermath of Sham-e-Ghariba. He was taken as a prisoner to Kufa. He was taken to Sham. He then returned back on the day of Arba'in to Karbala. And then he returned to Medina with his father, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. And throughout his life, people asked him, what, do you remember? And he used to recollect the story of Karbala to people and to obviously as an eyewitness of the tragedies. For example, one example I will give, and then that's my time finished. They say that when Aliyun al-Askar was killed, when the baby of Aba Abdullah was killed at the age of 6 months, they say that a riwayah or hadith from Imam al-Baqir says that when Imam Hussein got the blood of a 6-month baby in his hand, he threw the blood up towards the skies. Upar penka, he threw it up. And Imam Baqir narrates that none of the drops of blood of Aliyun al-Askar came back down to the ground. None. Why? Because this was Imam Hussein's special sacrifice to Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that blood and did not allow gravity to bring that blood down onto the surface. So yes, Imam Baqir was present in Karbala. We have many hadiths and narrations of him telling us what happened on the day of Ashura, in which he used to always say, La yawmaka yawmik, ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like your day, ya Aba Abdullah.
Thank you very much.